How about Jake? What do you think of Jake?
Clown.
Yeah.
He's a clown. But I know that Jake can't fight.
Can't
So
fight. is what
he
you're saying.
can't fight.
Started the rigged fights rumor. He's the one that started the steroids rumor. So
Yeah, he did have all of us thinking that you was rigging those fights, though. I ain't gonna lie, he right about that.
but how did you
How could he
honestly
rig a
believe
fight?
that? You honestly believe that?
I wanted to believe it when you fought Woodley.
You know, but me, I'm gonna speak my mind, and I'm just gonna keep it 100, man. Jake Paul is fugazi. He's fake. That's how you feel. Truly fake.
Gervonta Davis just obliterated Jake Paul with one brutal statement, and the boxing world is absolutely losing its mind. Davis didn't just question Paul's skills. He straight up called him a fraud who can't fight at a professional level. We're talking about one of the most devastating Pauls in recent boxing history, and it's igniting a war that's been brewing for years. Davis basically said what every real boxer has been thinking. Jake Paul is nothing more than a carefully manufactured hype machine who picks his opponents like he's shopping for groceries. The Baltimore native didn't hold back, calling Paul a straight-up clown who depends entirely on social media buzz and hand-picked matchups instead of actual boxing talent. And here's the kicker. This isn't just trash talk between fighters. This is the established boxing elite drawing a line in the sand and saying enough is enough.
I was training for something like this. Obviously, smaller guy. How was this in the training aspect, Jake?
Yeah, just a lot of punching down, practicing, hitting below my knees, and a lot of speed.
He warming up.
We're
now.
sparring.
That's what we need.
We're sparring.
Warm up.
Some
I know
8-year-olds. I got the 8-year-olds in there.
If I find out anything, I'm gonna beat your ass and I'm gonna beat Jaden Love ass. On my mama, I'm gonna beat both of y'all ass. On my mama. And he laughing. He know. He laughing.
What are you talking about?
What
does he have to do with this?
Let anything. You know what I'm talking about. Let anything. Nah, I don't have to say it right now. Don't worry about it. I don't gotta say it up here. Let anything happen. And
But Jake Gervonta wasn't about to take that lying down. Paul fired back with what might be the most defensive response we've ever seen from him, and honestly, it makes him look even more desperate. He called the fight-fixing allegations dumb and kept repeating that rigging fights is illegal, like that's supposed to end the conversation. Here's what's wild, though. Paul spent way too much time explaining why the rumors exist, talking about hate and misunderstanding, basically admitting that these accusations are getting under his skin big time. A truly confident fighter would laugh it off and move on. Instead, Paul's out here writing essays about why people don't believe in him. That's not the behavior of someone who's secure in their abilities. That's someone who knows the criticism hits way too close to home.
Hey, guy, though.
But anyone who believes that narrative, it's like, come on, it's a federal crime. It's illegal. Like, and you think Anderson Silva's gonna lose? You think Woodley's gonna take a fall? You guys, you know these guys.
Yeah, no, I didn't think Anderson would take a fall, but
you think
why you passing my
but you think but people think the Mike Tyson fight's rigged. You think Mike Tyson's gonna?
No, I don't think Mike Tyson would ruin his. Why you pulling out glizzies?
Don't ever disrespect him talking about fake fights.
You want one of these glizzies?
No, but I'm genuinely interested in the people. I try to understand, like.
No, everybody's saying Mike Tyson pulled his punches.
I try to understand dumb people because I can't relate. Like, I really genuinely spend parts of my day like trying to like see people online and like think like, how could someone be so dumb? And I still don't get it.
No, I think people.
And get this, Davis took it to another level during a recent press event. And what he said next changes everything. Davis made it crystal clear that the only thing standing between him and exposing Jake Paul is all the restrictions and controlled conditions that surround Paul's fights. He basically said if you put them in a ring with no scripts, no predetermined outcomes, no carefully managed circumstances, the truth would come out real fast. The implication couldn't be more obvious. Davis is saying he's a real fighter who doesn't need protection or manipulation, while Paul's entire career depends on having everything perfectly orchestrated. This isn't just confidence. This is a championship-level boxer calling out what he sees as a complete fraud. And the boxing community is eating it up because they've been waiting for someone with Davis's credibility to say what they've all been thinking.
What
does he have to do with this?
Let anything. You know what I'm talking about. Let anything. Nah, I don't have to say it right now. Don't worry about it. I don't gotta say it up here. Let anything happen. And
Now here's where this story gets absolutely insane. These two were actually supposed to fight, and the cancellation has created the most toxic rivalry in combat sports right now. The fight fell through, and ever since then, it's been all-out warfare between their camps. But Roy Jones Jr. just dropped some information that exposes Jake Paul as a complete hypocrite. According to Jones, Paul knew all about Davis's legal issues long before they became public, but he was perfectly fine moving forward with the fight when it served his interests. Then, the moment a fresh lawsuit surfaced and the optics got bad, Paul suddenly acted shocked and pulled out, pretending like this was all news to him. So Paul was willing to overlook serious legal concerns when he thought he could benefit, but the second it became inconvenient, he played the moral high ground card. That's not principled decision-making. That's opportunistic business calculation.
Paul knew what it was when he first signed the fight. This ain't the first time he had battled against a woman. You knew what it was when you first signed the fight. So don't get mad and cuss him out and talk bad about him now. You knew what it was when you signed up for it. Come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? Let's not do that. Nobody talk. I don't talk bad about him either, but don't do the dude like that. No, the dude having a hard time in his life right now. Don't just do him like that. You know what I mean? Because you knew exactly.
But wait, it gets worse for Jake Paul. Tim Bradley just joined the pylon, and his comments are absolutely devastating. Bradley didn't just criticize Paul, he completely dismantled his entire career with surgical precision. Bradley's point was brutal in its simplicity. Paul's opposition has been a joke, and anyone pretending otherwise is living in fantasy land. According to Bradley, Paul's built his entire reputation on spectacle rather than legitimate competition, which is exactly why real boxers refuse to take him seriously. This isn't some random fighter talking trash. This is Tim Bradley, a former world champion and respected analyst, basically saying Paul's accomplishments mean nothing in the context of real boxing. The fact that established figures like Bradley are going public with these criticisms shows just how fed up the boxing world has become with the Jake Paul circus.
Knock you I can't knock your hustle. When you built something outside of boxing and you say, hey, yo, I'm coming over here to the sport now and I'm gonna pick and choose who I fight, y'all come follow me. If they follow him, man, I just understand what it is. I know what I'm looking at. You're not gonna fool me over here. Save that stuff for them other people, because I'm not gonna believe that I'm the face of, no, you're not the face of boxing. I'm not giving you that, because that's for a lifer.
But that's what he believes.
That's cool, I can't knock him for that. People believe a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. I'm just saying, you can do all the rah-rah stuff, that's your business. But I just know what I'm looking at, right? But on the monetary side and it being an event, the truth is that when he does fight, it does bring attention around the sport. People debate, they argue, people want to see the fight. Is it legit? Is it him?
Hold up, though, because the Paul camp is fighting back hard against these rigging allegations. Nakasa Bidarian, who's basically Paul's business partner and promoter, came out swinging to defend the Anthony Joshua fight specifically. There had been massive speculation on social media that the Joshua bout was predetermined, with fans pointing to suspicious betting patterns and the way certain moments played out. Bidarian flat-out denied everything, insisting that neither Paul nor his team engaged in any manipulation whatsoever. According to him, the idea that they scripted the outcome is completely false, and he's putting his reputation on the line to defend the legitimacy of that contest. This is significant because Bidarian doesn't usually respond to conspiracy theories, but the accusations got so widespread that they had to address them directly.
There's I've seen the script, rigged, this, that, and the other. Do you think now, at the very least, that talk goes away? Broke his jaw, went in there against Anthony Joshua. At the very least, do you think that you guys can move on from that? Like, that won't follow you?
No, I don't. I actually, our lawyers are actively going after a number of people. One who claims to be a lawyer himself online. I don't remember the name or the handle, but it was something that had like 200,000 likes. And basically this post said there was an agreement for AJ not to knock out Jake, but AJ disregarded the agreement and decided to not get his payday, but knock out Jake Paul. So it's pretty astonishing what people say. Your dear friend Lou DiBella, saw him put up a bunch of ridiculous things and even said, Nikisa, go ahead and sue me, but this wasn't a real fight. He was pulling punches. He wasn't giving it his full effort.
And so for the people, again, just to clear this up, because I asked Eddie this question, I'll ask you the exact same question. once and for all, was there any sort of arrangement as far as it should go this many rounds? Because that's the one that I've heard. Oh, Anthony agreed to 3 rounds, 4 rounds. Can you tell us in black and white if there were any talks of any kind between the network, the promotion, the fighter?
There has never once in Jake Paul's career been any talk of that sort, of anything to do with the fight being anything but a real fight that has exactly the same situation as any professional fight. And that's exactly the same thing here for the Anthony Joshua fight. It's just beyond mind-blowing that people would think that. Anthony Joshua was on record saying that if he didn't finish him in the first round, that would be disappointing, that it would be a failure. The narrative changed as we got closer to fight night and obviously post-fight, and I understand why, but they were pretty adamant.
And here's the thing that makes this whole situation even more complicated. The Joshua fight ended with Jake Paul getting absolutely destroyed. We're talking about a brutal knockout that broke Paul's jaw and left him unconscious on the canvas. Ariel Helwani weighed in afterward, basically saying anyone who thought Paul had a chance was delusional from the start. Helwani's take was that Joshua is a world-class heavyweight with Olympic gold and years of elite-level experience, while Paul is essentially a YouTube star who learned to box. The outcome wasn't surprising to anyone who understands the sport. It was inevitable. But here's what's interesting. If the fight was really fixed like people claimed, why would they script Paul to get knocked out so violently? That brutal ending actually supports the argument that it was a legitimate contest, because no promoter would script their golden goose getting his jaw broken on live television.
To win this fight. And I really didn't know if it was going to last 30 seconds or 8 rounds. And every time he threw a punch, I like winced, because he's a big man and he's an incredible boxer and he's still in his prime, and he's got a very long reach and he's got a lot of power in that right hand, and that left hook is terrifying as well. And so I thought it could end at any moment. And so because of that, I was captivated and enthralled, because I literally thought that he could take Jake's head off at any moment. So a 30-second knockout wouldn't have been a great surprise to me. The fact that Jake went 6 rounds, I think he should view as a moral victory. Sounds like he's proud of himself. Do I think it was the greatest fight of all time? Of course not. Was I expecting the greatest fight of all time? Of course not. Honestly, up until the walkouts, I was like, I can't even believe that this is still happening. I can't believe that this is a real thing that's about to, unfold in front of our eyes. There was a lot of pressure, I think, on Anthony's shoulders for 2 reasons. He's coming off a knockout loss. I don't think that was discussed enough in the lead up to this fight. When you are coming off a knockout loss, you are a little bit tentative, gun shy. You remember it, and he had not fought since then, and it was like 15 or so months ago. And so I think he was very worried about slipping on a banana peel, about screwing up for boxing and screwing up for his legacy. And then I thought that he was like headhunting a little bit, and that's not really his style, and he was swinging and missing, and I thought that was getting to him a little bit. Do I think he was playing with his food? No, there were a couple times where he was going to the body, and I was like, why aren't you going to the head? The head?
Now listen to this part, because Luke Thomas had probably the most controversial take of all. Thomas came out and criticized everyone who was praising Jake Paul for even stepping in the ring with Joshua. His argument was that we shouldn't be applauding Paul for taking a fight he had no business being in, especially when the result proved exactly what critics had been saying all along. According to Thomas, the narrative that Paul showed heart and courage completely misses the point. Paul was outclassed, outboxed, and exposed as someone who doesn't belong at that level. Thomas believes the positive coverage Paul received afterward was undeserved, and that the media should focus on what the fight actually revealed about Paul's limitations. It's a harsh perspective, but Thomas is basically saying we shouldn't celebrate participation trophies in professional boxing.
Driving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his punches partly because Jake was squirmy and rotating on the outside. Also in part because I think, as I indicated on Friday, he's watching this guy with pretty bad footwork. He was literally tripping over himself, and he realized he just can't keep this up. So, okay, so there was that. But people were acting like, like how could this be? How could this have happened? Guys, on Friday's MK, and then before that, earlier in the week on Submission Radio, they asked me on Submission Radio, how do you think he's gonna fight? And I'm like, he's gonna run. And they're like, you don't think he's gonna clinch? I'm like, okay, he'll clinch at times, but then the rest of the time he's going to run. Like, what other way was this going to go? What other way was this?
But here's where it gets really wild. Chael Sonnen brought up the most damning point of all. Sonnen questioned the fundamental logic of putting a fighter with only 11 professional bouts against an Olympic gold medalist and former heavyweight champion. In traditional boxing, fighters spend decades working their way up through the ranks, proving themselves against increasingly difficult opponents before they even get a shot at elite competition. Paul's trajectory completely bypasses this system, jumping straight from fighting retired MMA fighters and celebrities to facing legitimate world champions. Sonnen's critique goes beyond just this one fight. He's questioning whether celebrity status and social media followings should be able to override the merit-based system that boxing has always operated on. This isn't just about Jake Paul anymore. This is about the integrity of the entire sport.
Jake Paul had a very healthy fear for his life while he was in there, and he was moving as such. He was staying away from him. He was running away. He was trying to get distance. Then he was trying to step in to win this athletic competition, and then he's trying to get out of the way so that he doesn't get hurt again. I mean, he was fighting. Then it turns to where he can't stay away anymore. So now he's got to go the other way. He's got to go forward. So now he's clinched him. Now he's dropping down to his knees. He's going below the waist. He's getting to double leg positions. He was fighting. These guys were Jake was fighting for his survival, and you could so see it. You could see this animal who's been caged and is just trying to make it through, not even kill its prey, just make it through. And it was incredible. It was really incredible. So on the back end, some of the comments that I made or that I had heard were so confusing to me. It was a very good competition. I will tell you, it breaks my heart too that Anthony Joshua can't get him out of there in one round. Dave Portnoy had made a comment before the fight. He said, I like Jake. I wish well for Jake. Of course I'm taking Joshua. And then Portnoy made his point. And he said, because I believe in boxing. This isn't if I'm cheering for Jake or if I think that Joshua's more experienced or better. I believe in boxing. I believe boxing's real. If boxing is an actual sport, if it is an actual sweet science, then of course a guy that's done it 11 times cannot compete.
Of course, not everyone was throwing Paul under the bus. Daniel Cormier, the former UFC champion, actually defended Paul's decision to take the Joshua fight, praising him for having the courage to step up against such a dangerous opponent. Cormier acknowledged that Paul took a massive risk fighting someone so much bigger and more experienced, especially considering Paul had spent most of his career against lighter, less skilled opponents. He even joked that anyone would take $100 million payday. But beyond the humor, Cormier genuinely respected the guts it took to accept that level of challenge. From Cormier's perspective, regardless of the outcome, Paul showed real bravery by putting himself in a position where he could get seriously hurt against one of boxing's biggest names.
Oh man, I thought Jake Paul was a brave guy. Then I found out he made $100 million. I was thinking, well, anybody would fight for $100 million, but bro, he fought. I literally ran into Logan Paul in New York City, and I said to him, it was weird too because I was going into a studio to interview Kamaru Usman for one of my shows, and Logan Paul was at the coffee shop. He's like, DC. I was like, what's up, Logan? Because he does a tremendous job in WWE. Yeah, Logan Paul does.
I don't watch WWE, but I know that.
Dude, you're huge. He might literally be the best professional wrestler in the world.
Really?
He's such an athlete, bro.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. But I'm just stroking him right now. I swear to God, bro, it's unbelievable how good the kid is.
Okay.
From the moment he started doing it, he was really good.
He can cut a promo, huh?
Like, he got what kids say. Bro, he's got a.
So here's where we stand right now. And honestly, this situation is about to explode into something much bigger. You've got legitimate champions like Gervonta Davis calling Paul a fraud, established analysts like Tim Bradley saying his career is built on nothing but hype, and even respected voices like Roy Jones Jr. exposing Paul as a hypocrite who picks and chooses his moral standards based on business convenience. At the same time, Paul's team is desperately trying to defend their legitimacy, while Paul himself is clearly rattled by all the criticism. This isn't just about one fighter anymore. This is about the future of combat sports, and whether celebrity status should be able to buy you a seat at the champion's table. The boxing world is essentially at war with itself, with traditional fighters and fans on one side demanding respect for the sport's integrity, and Paul's supporters on the other side arguing that he's bringing new fans and money to boxing. What do you think? Is Jake Paul a legitimate boxer who's earned his place? Or is he exactly what his critics say he is? A social media star playing dress-up in a real fighter's world? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is far from over. If you want to stay updated on this developing story, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because things are about to get even more heated. I'll see you in the next one.
Athletic. I said to him, I go, what type of safeguards do you have in place to make sure he doesn't get his head knocked off against Anthony Joshua?
And just when you think this whole situation couldn't get any more insane, Ryan Garcia just threw gasoline on this fire with some absolutely explosive revelations. Garcia came forward claiming he has inside information about how Jake Paul's fights are actually structured behind the scenes, and what he's saying is going to shock you. According to Garcia, there are specific clauses in Paul's contracts that essentially guarantee certain outcomes, or at least heavily influence how fights play out. We're not just talking about standard boxing contract language here. Garcia is alleging there are actual provisions that control the flow and intensity of these bouts. Garcia claims he's seen paperwork that would make your jaw drop, and he's basically saying what everyone suspected but nobody could prove. This is huge because Garcia isn't some random internet troll. He's an active professional boxer with connections throughout the industry who would have access to this kind of information.
137 2 fights ago. So now you're gonna go fight Anthony Joshua, who weighs all of 250? He said, all right. He said he's gonna just fight him. I go, man, he's very bold. And then what happened was he ran a lot.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Everybody goes, even Eddie Hearn goes, he did better than Francis. And I'm like, well, Francis didn't move around much. Francis thought he could actually fight him because of what he did to Tyson Fury, right? Couldn't. Tyson Fury might have overlooked him a little bit, and I think that's what happened. Like, he got caught with the right hand drop. Anthony Joshua was like, I'm not taking any chances with this guy. So he fought him, and he took him serious. But Francis didn't move.
That's it for today. But here's what makes Garcia's claims even more explosive. He's saying that multiple fighters have been approached with these types of arrangements, and some have turned them down specifically because they refused to participate in what they considered predetermined outcomes. Garcia mentioned that several legitimate boxers were offered massive paydays to fight Paul, but when they saw the contractual requirements, they walked away from life-changing money rather than compromise their integrity. Think about that for a second. Professional fighters are literally turning down millions of dollars because they refuse to be part of what they see as scripted entertainment masquerading as legitimate sport. Garcia even hinted that some fighters who did take Paul fights later regretted their decisions because of how the boxing community treated them afterward. The implication is that taking a Jake Paul fight comes with so much baggage that it can actually damage a real boxer's reputation permanently. Meanwhile, Mike Tyson just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through the entire combat sports world. Tyson was asked directly about Jake Paul during a recent interview, and his response was absolutely savage. Iron Mike basically said that Paul represents everything wrong with modern boxing. All flash, no substance, all marketing, no heart. But Tyson didn't stop there. He went on to say that in his era, fighters like Paul would have been eaten alive before they even made it to a professional ring. According to Tyson, the current system allows people to bypass the brutal apprenticeship that real boxers go through, where you get your face rearranged in small gyms for years before anyone even knows your name. Tyson's point was that Paul's entire career is built on avoiding the kind of opposition that would expose his limitations. And that's not boxing. That's entertainment with boxing gloves on. And get this, Tyson revealed something that nobody saw coming. He claims that Jake Paul's team actually reached out to him about a potential exhibition match, but when Tyson heard the proposed terms, he laughed them out of the room. According to Iron Mike, the restrictions they wanted to put in place were so extensive that it wouldn't even resemble a real fight. We're talking about limitations on punch power, specific round requirements, even guidelines about how aggressive each fighter could be. Tyson said he told them that if they wanted to put on a dance recital, they should hire choreographers, not fighters. The fact that Paul's team would even approach a legend like Tyson with those kinds of conditions shows just how far removed from authentic boxing they really are. Tyson basically called it an insult to everything he's dedicated his life to. But wait, because this story takes another insane turn when Floyd Mayweather decided to weigh in on the whole controversy. Now remember, Mayweather actually fought Jake's brother Logan in an exhibition, so he has first-hand experience dealing with the Paul family circus. Floyd's comments were calculated but devastating. He basically said that while the Pauls are smart businessmen who know how to make money, they're not real fighters, and everyone in the boxing world knows it. Mayweather acknowledged that they've figured out how to monetize combat sports without actually being elite competitors, which he called clever but ultimately hollow. What's interesting is that Floyd seemed almost impressed by their business acumen while completely dismissing their fighting abilities. He compared them to professional wrestlers, entertaining performers who put on a show but shouldn't be confused with legitimate athletes. Here's where Mayweather's comments get really spicy, though. He revealed that after his exhibition with Logan Canelo, Jake actually tried to start problems backstage, apparently upset about how his brother was being treated during the promotion. According to Floyd, Jake got in his face and started talking tough, but when Mayweather's security stepped in, Paul backed down real quick. Mayweather laughed about it, saying Jake talks a big game on social media, but becomes a completely different person when he's face-to-face with real killers. This story is significant because it shows Paul's pattern. He's aggressive and confrontational when he controls the environment, but he folds when he encounters genuine danger. Mayweather basically painted him as someone who's tough only when the odds are stacked in his favor. Now here's something that's going to blow your mind. Canelo Alvarez just made some comments that might be the most damaging thing said about Jake Paul yet. Canelo, who's arguably the biggest star in boxing right now, was asked about Paul during a press conference, and his response was ice cold. Canelo said that Paul isn't even worth discussing in the context of professional boxing, comparing him to someone who plays basketball at the local park trying to claim they belong in the NBA. But Canelo went further, saying that Paul's presence in boxing is actually harmful to the sport because it confuses casual fans about what real boxing looks like. According to Canelo, when people see Paul's fights and think that's representative of professional boxing, it diminishes the incredible skill and dedication that real champions possess. But here's the kicker. Canelo revealed that Paul's team has been trying to set up a fight between them for over a year, and the financial offers have been astronomical. We're talking about numbers that would make it one of the highest-grossing fights in boxing history. But Canelo said he's rejected every proposal because he refuses to legitimize what he sees as a circus act. Think about that. Canelo is turning down potentially hundreds of millions of dollars because he believes fighting Jake Paul would damage his legacy and the sport he loves. That's the kind of principled stance that separates real champions from opportunists. Canelo basically said his reputation and the integrity of boxing are worth more than any payday Paul could offer. And just when you think the criticism couldn't get any more intense, Deontay Wilder jumped into the conversation with some absolutely brutal observations. Wilder, the former heavyweight champion known for his knockout power, said that Jake Paul represents the worst trend in modern combat sports manufactured controversy, designed to generate revenue rather than determine the best fighters. According to Wilder, Paul's entire career is built on avoiding real competition while creating the illusion of legitimacy through careful marketing and opponent selection. Wilder compared it to a magician's trick. It looks impressive until you understand how it's done, and then it just becomes sad. He said real fighters spend their entire lives preparing for war, while Paul spends his time preparing for photo shoots. Wilder also dropped some inside information that's going to change how you see Jake Paul's career trajectory. According to the Bronze Bomber, multiple heavyweight contenders have been approached about fighting Paul, and the financial terms being offered are absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about career-defining money. But here's what's interesting. Wilder claims that several fighters turned down these opportunities specifically because they didn't want to be associated with what they perceived as entertainment rather than sport. Wilder mentioned that some boxers are so concerned about their reputations that they won't even take meetings with Paul's representatives. The fact that legitimate heavyweights are avoiding easy paydays because they don't want to be connected to Paul's brand tells you everything you need to know about how the boxing community really views him. Now get ready for this, because Sean Porter just revealed something that might explain Jake Paul's entire strategy. Porter, the former welterweight champion and current boxing analyst, claims he has sources inside Paul's camp who have told him about the specific criteria they use when selecting opponents. According to Porter's information, Paul's team doesn't just look for fighters they can beat. They look for fighters who will provide good theater while still allowing Paul to look competitive. Porter says there's actually a formula they use that considers factors like the opponent's current skill level, their ability to promote the fight, their willingness to engage in pre-fight drama, and most importantly, their likelihood of making Paul look good even if he loses. This isn't just cherry-picking opponents anymore. This is industrial-level manipulation of competitive matchmaking. Porter went even deeper, claiming that some fighters have been offered bonuses for making fights more entertaining, essentially getting paid extra for putting on a show rather than trying to win decisively. If this is true, it means Paul's fights aren't just carefully selected, they're potentially choreographed to some degree. Porter emphasized that he's not saying the outcomes are predetermined, but rather that the participants are incentivized to prioritize entertainment value over pure competition. This would explain why Paul's fights often feel different from traditional boxing matches. They're designed to be spectacles first and athletic competitions second. Porter's revelations suggest that Paul hasn't just changed how boxing is promoted, he's fundamentally altered how some fights are conceived and executed.